Good morning, people. Welcome back to Outlaw Country. Nice day in the mountains today. I headed out pretty early, about I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes before daylight, and worked my way up to the top of the ridge. And I'm gonna work down the ridge now. Sorry, not gonna work. I'm on the top of the ridge. I'm gonna work my way north on this ridge, drop down into the valley, and then probably head up the other side and go check a couple of my trail cams that I got out. See what's out here. It's a nice day. It's windy. It was pretty darn cold this morning. It's still cool now, but it's manageable. It's not freezing by any means, but it's probably 3 degrees or something. I don't know if you guys can hear it right now. They're off in the distance now, but about an hour after daylight, maybe 20 minutes ago, I started hearing airplanes, and they're kind of to the north east of me here. The planes are, and I saw one, and then I heard the other one. And I can tell they're flying a pattern. And they've been circling for probably, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, maybe close to half an hour. They've been circling and flying a bit of a pattern. So, unfortunately, what that tells me is there's a very good possibility there's someone lost out here somewhere to the north east of me. I can still hear the planes now. So what those planes will do is from what I know, if somebody's lost in a reported area, they'll start their search fairly tight, and then they'll expand their grid and just keep expanding their grid until they hopefully find the person. So before I carry on here, I'm going to send a quick text to Mrs. Outlaw, and because I do have my satellite texting capabilities, I'm going to get a hold of her and just let her know that I'm good. But somewhere in the vicinity of where I am, there could be somebody lost. I'll probably get her to maybe look it up on the internet or get a hold of local search and rescue or something. Just ask them, because if there is someone lost out here and I can be of any assistance, boy, I sure will be. Anyhow, yeah, you can probably hear the airplane now. Anyways, been a good start to the day. Nice weather for a good hike, so let's make some tracks, and yeah, we'll get some emails read out. Of course I will. Of course I will, but just not quite yet. We're gonna wander through the timber here, top of the ridge, and I want to keep an eye on this creek bottom down below me because it's a great spot for deer. Let's do it. I hope I'm wrong about somebody being lost out here, because it's a pretty shitty deal. I know, I've been there. I've been lost before. It's no fun. It's even less fun if you're not prepared. So I hope I'm wrong, but I can hear the planes still. They're just a little further off than what they were, so that tells me that either I'm wrong or they're spreading the search pattern out a bit. There's the creek down below us. So I'll follow the creek for
I'll follow the creek for a few miles. Yeah, the wind broke those trees, eh? I'll follow the creek here for a few miles up river, and then I'll cross and head up on the other ridge and head west, southwest, and get on that ridge, and that's where my cameras are at. So pretty good game trail here, as you can see. Got my trusty 300 Win Mag with me today. Not just bear spray. If I'm actually hunting, of course, I'm carrying a gun. Beautiful area. Hope everybody's doing well. And I hope you guys are maybe out doing something you love to do. Had a good little chat the other day with Fred Roll, our friend Fred Roll, subarctic Alaskan Sasquatch. And because I reached out to Fred, as I told you guys, so I had a good chat with him the other day and told Fred that I'm taking off for about a week on my fall mule deer hunt, and that I would get a hold of him when I returned from that, because he said, hey man, thanks for reaching out about my dad. Maybe you and I should sit down and have another chat here one of these days. I said I'd love to. So that's what we're gonna do. I'll give Fred a shout when we get home. It'll be probably mid-November before I get in touch with him, but taking off for a week, so as soon as I get back, I'll give Fred a shout. Holy, look at the size of these mushrooms. I don't know what kind they are, but they're big. I hate mushrooms. I won't eat them. Alright, I gotta get across. I gotta get through this log jam and across the other side. So here we go. There's a pretty good elk rub. That's not deer, that's elk. Oh boy, now I hear a helicopter. So I would almost guarantee someone's lost in here somewhere. A couple airplanes, now a helicopter. Not good. Anyways, deer rubs. These black-tailed deer, even mule deer, whatever, they won't total a big tree like that. All right, what they'll do is they'll get on a small tree like this one here, right? Like this one. Sometimes bigger trees. And they'll get their horns in there and work those over. So it's quite a bit of a smaller rub. And the other thing is the deer here are not in the rut yet. The elk rut is right around September 10th, give or take a few days. That's the elk rut. And The deer rut is right around September 18th, give or take. And the moose rut is where I hunt, northern British Columbia, right on the BC Yukon border. The moose rut there is end of September. Well, the moose rut starts. The moose rut is a long rut. The elk can be too. They all can be, but the moose rut starts around September 15th, northern BC. And starts then and ends right around October 15th. It is about a month long, but the serious rut for me in my 28 years of hunting there, the serious rut has always been the end of September. Look at that beautiful little drop in the river. Isn't that nice? Little black bear right there. Right there. Oh, there he goes. He just took off. Huh. Little black bear watching us. That cute little guy. All right, I gotta get through here. X marks the spot, hey? X marks the spot. All right, made her across the creek. Made her across. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna take a break and then head up the other side here. Get a couple emails read out for you awesome people. There we go. There we go. What a beautiful little spot. This little creek's definitely running faster than it was last time I was here. We've had a lot of rain here in the last week or so. Last weekend it really poured, so kind of expected the creeks to be up. Anyhow, it's all good. It's all good. So I'm gonna wander in here. I still got probably about, I don't know, maybe an hour to my first camera, and then I got a second camera, another 15 or 20 minutes away from that one. So I'll probably be an hour and a half in, and then about 2.5, 3 hours to get out. So it'll be a good hike, put on some miles, keep the legs moving. My back's doing better. My back's doing much better. And yeah. I love the sound of the creek. I love the sound of the rivers, creeks. It's just so soothing to me. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, I took Mrs. Outlaw and my oldest daughter and her husband, and I took them to a real special place of mine
in central British Columbia. It's an area that I learned to hunt in from my dad and from my grandpa. I hunted with both of them in there. And I started hunting in there a little over 40 years ago. And it's a beautiful area. It's very special to me. And I took them in there because I wanted them to see this spot. It's just the beautiful mountains and whatnot. And as a matter of fact, that's where I'm going in a couple of days here for about a week. Mule deer hunting with my buddy. So I'm going to do some video for you guys because it's a stunning area. I find it stunning anyways. It's a beautiful spot. Anyhow, I took my wife and my daughter and my son-in-law, and we went in there just for a weekend camping. I wanted to show them. And we camped by a creek, not this close to the creek, but fairly close. And one night we were just sitting out, the four of us, sitting out by a fire, had a fire going, sitting out by the fire. And you could hear the creek off in the distance a little bit. And Mrs. Outlaw said, "Did you hear that? Somebody was talking. Did you hear that? There's somebody out there." And I said, "No, you ever heard the term babbling brook?" I said, "That's the creek talking." And she's like, "Wow, that is wild." She'd never really heard that before and heard that saying. But the babbling brook, sometimes, especially a slower moving water, you'll get sounds like it's talking to you. And it's pretty cool. So anyways, I love creeks. Always have, always will. Creeks and rivers. I'm going to get into these emails. I'm going to get into some emails because I've had a lot of people comment saying, love what you're doing and whatnot. I just wish you could do more. So I wish I could too, you guys. But I'm not just going out for a hike to read emails. I generally have a purpose. And, I'm either hunting or putting out cameras or looking for a spot for steelhead fishing or whatever. So, I wish I had more time to just sit and read for you, but I don't. So, joke's on me. My camera's playing games on me again. It does that once in a while. It's crazy. Anyhow, I wish I had more time to read more emails for you guys. I could sit out here all day and read emails for you and share stuff with you, but I just don't have the time. Do the best I can. So, before I get on to these, I just want to thank all of you again. I want to thank every subscriber. I want to thank every member of Outlaw Country. And I think we got a great thing here. I think we got great people here. We got people of value and integrity and honesty, and people that care. And I appreciate every single one of you. All right, so I really do. I don't take anybody for granted. You're a good person. I don't take you for granted. I really value you. So now I can get on to a couple of emails here. We'll see what we can get through, how much time we have, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound? All right. Here we go. Next in line at Outlaw Country. Okay. Hi, Darren. My name is Heather Brooks. I live in the great state of Montana. I spend a lot of time driving all around Montana working with horses. So I have the opportunity to see the beautiful countryside almost every day. I am not a hunter or really even much of an outdoors person, but my husband does hunt, and so does our son. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy walks out in the forest and in the mountains, but I stick to well-used trails and generally fairly close to home. Last November, I was on my way to a ranch that I've done a lot of work for in the past. It was fairly early morning and still dark out when I rounded a corner on the gravel road, and this huge being came up the steep bank from the river and crossed the road about 50 feet or so in front of my truck. I hit the brakes hard and came to a stop.
This huge, hairy, man-looking creature took 2 long steps up the hill, then stopped and turned to look at me. I was mesmerized and stunned, probably in shock at what I was seeing. Could not believe my eyes. I'm just taking a guess, but I would say that this being was 9 feet tall, maybe 4 feet wide at its shoulders. The thickness of the chest was maybe 2 feet. It had no neck and a short, wide head. It felt like we stared at each other for minutes, but it was only seconds. All of a sudden, this being bolted right at my truck. My instant reaction was to hit the gas, which I did. This Bigfoot was at my passenger's fender as I was speeding away, and it drove its fist into the side of my truck. I was screaming and had the truck floored and never stopped until I hit the ranch house. The owner came out of the barn as I was coming down his driveway. He was waving his arms for me to slow down. I got out of the truck and was babbling a mile a minute about a Bigfoot I'd just seen. So Stuart, the ranch owner, walked me into the barn, sat me down. He said, "Don't worry, Heather. It's all okay now." He's lived on this ranch his entire life. And he told me that he's seen these people twice in the past 40 years. He said I probably startled this thing and it was reacting to being scared. I finally calmed down a bit, but it took a long time for me to come to terms with what I'd seen. Stuart told me about the times he'd run into them on the ranch, and I was absolutely captivated as he told me his stories. He said the first time he saw 2 of them in the middle of winter, way off on the side of the mountain, and the one being was dragging a large mule deer behind it with one hand. He said he knew it was a Bigfoot, not a person, as there's no way any man could drag a large mule deer in the snow uphill with one hand, and they were moving incredibly fast. He said he watched them for a minute or 2 until they went over the ridge, and they were gone. The second time he saw one was only a couple years ago, in the middle of summer, just at dusk. He crossed the bridge in his truck heading for home, and there was a Bigfoot squatted down halfway out in the river. He said when he hit his brakes on the bridge, this thing took off like a flash across the river and out of sight. He said he only saw that one for a split second before it hit the trees. Although these people do scare me to death, I can't help but find myself fascinated about them. I spend a lot of time now reading about them and listening to others who have seen them. My good friend here is a local native lady, and when I told her what I'd seen, she did share with me all she knew about these mysterious Bigfoot people. She also has seen them before, but she asked me not to discuss her stories with anyone. I'm still fascinated by the Bigfoot people, and I'll continue to look into them as much as I can. I've got so many questions. I got so many questions, but I don't think there'll be answers to many of them. I have one question for you, if you don't mind. Do you personally believe these people are from this planet or from somewhere else? I won't take any more of your time, but I want to thank you for your time
I want to thank you for the time you take to share all the emails you receive. You truly are a good person with a big heart. Heather Brooks. Well, thanks, Heather. I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words. I'm gonna mark that one as red. Do I think they're from this planet or from somewhere else? Well, my honest opinion is, I don't know. I used to, in my entire life, used to think that they are from here, that they are whatever, like left over from the Ice Age. I don't know what you want to call it, but like a prehistoric type man. That's always been my belief, that they are a people, that they are from here, up until maybe the last year or so, two maybe. And in the last year or two, my opinion's shifting slightly, and I've said it before. So there's a very, very, very good possibility they're not from here, that they just come here. Right? Very good possibility. So I hope that answers your question the best of it. It's the best answer I got. I appreciate you emailing us. I'd like to talk to you about the one that you saw. Like, did you tell the rancher that it hit your truck? Did you tell anybody else what happened to you other than your friend? So yeah, I got some questions for you. I'll definitely reach out to you. I'd like to hear what you have to say, and thanks again for having the courage to email into all of us. I've had other emails, and I've heard on other channels people witnessing these beings dragging animals, carrying animals, parts of animals. I mean, let's face it, if they live out in this environment, they've got to eat what's out here. And if I was out living in the woods, that's exactly what I would eat. But it just goes to show you the sheer strength and power of these things, right? Like, no, you're right. The rancher is right. No man could drag a full-grown mule deer dead with one hand up a hill. You're not doing it. Period. So it just goes to show the strength of these beings have. It's incredible. And again, another eyewitness of their speed, the speed in which they move. You and him both mentioned how quickly they move, and that's pretty impressive. Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it, and I will certainly reach out to you. Okay, here we go. Hello, Outlaw Country. I hope this finds you well and that you're having a good summer. My name's Nick Dawson, and I live in Northern Ontario, Canada. Most of my life has been spent in remote areas of Ontario, as I've maintained ice roads for the past 15 years. I grew up in Northern Ontario and started driving truck after high school. I quickly switched to driving the ice haul roads. And then eventually, after years of that, I got out of the truck and into the maintenance end of these ice highways. I honestly can't tell you how many hours I've spent in the most remote areas of northeastern Canada, but it's a lot. Some of these haul roads go for hundreds of miles between small settlements with no people in between. Yes, I have heard of Bigfoot many years ago, but honestly, I just did not believe the stories I'd heard and had no reason to look into them or judge for myself whether or not they were real. I really never gave these things much thought at all because I was pretty certain they were just a myth. In 1999, I was hauling a load to a remote community 120 miles north off the main highway. The only access in the winter Is the ice road or airplane? And I was about an hour from the village and it was dark. The sun is only up for a short time in the winter. I was on a stretch of the road that parallels the river. And of course, it was frozen solid. I could see tracks in the snow crossing the river on a long angle. And they caught my eye, but I figured it was probably just a moose. I saw the tracks come up the slight bank closer to the road. And that's when I realized there were only 2 steps, not 4 like a moose. And I also realized that these steps looked to be about 8 feet apart in 2 feet of snow. I slowed the truck a bit as the tracks came up the bank and crossed the road on a bit of an angle. As they came across the packed road on the driver's side, I just about shit myself. These were barefoot human tracks. I could clearly see the toes. And there were 3 steps across the road as this thing walked. I looked into the trees where these tracks went, but it was pretty dark off in the distance. I reached behind the seat of the truck, grabbed my big flashlight, and shined it on the tracks and followed them into the trees. I almost had a jammer when my light hits this big, hair-covered man standing maybe 60 feet off the side of the road, staring right at me. I could see this thing clearly. It looked like a man, but also much different. It was massive. His head was wide, forehead and jaw really pronounced. His face was almost entirely covered in the same dark brown hair. This massive being slowly moved to the left and slid behind a tree, and all I could see was a little part of his head. Here's what's really bizarre, Darren. The tree this man slid behind to hide was only about 18 inches around. We have no big timber here. This being was huge. No way he could have hid behind that tree, yet he did. His legs and arms were bigger than the tree was around, yet it concealed him, and all I could see was part of his head. I slowly backed up, kept the light on him until I reached the step of the truck. I climbed in, I closed the door, popped the brakes, and pulled away. I was watching my mirror to see if this thing came out behind me. Our trucks are not only well lit up at the front, we run lights at the back as well. As I'm looking in the rearview mirror, I see another one of these things run across the road from the passenger side. It was a bit of a blur, but trust me, it was clearly visible. I drove the rest of the way into the village and grabbed some shut-eye until morning when they could unload me. I wanted so badly to talk to the crew there about what I'd seen, but I thought they'd think I'm crazy, so I kept quiet. I headed back out for the highway, and I headed back out for the highway at about 10 a.m. As I got close to where I'd seen these beings, I slowed right down again. And yes, I saw 2 sets of tracks crossing the river coming up onto the road. There was the one I'd seen last night crossing on the long angle, and the other set came almost straight across, and they crossed the road at the exact same spot. I stopped again where they crossed the road and saw both tracks clearly in the snow. The one track was larger than the other. The one track was larger than the other, noticeably. I snapped a couple of pictures of these tracks and looked around the forest, but there was no way I was getting out of my truck. I hung around for a minute or so and then proceeded to head for the highway and for the shop. When I got home, I started looking into what I'd seen and learning a little about these Bigfoot. But I still could not really believe that's what I saw. I never said a word to anyone because it sounded crazy when I said it out loud to myself. I saw 2 Bigfoot. About a month later, I delivered a plow truck to the same community, and that trip was uneventful. But when I got to the village, I talked to the foreman, who I knew quite well, about what I had seen last time I was in. He kind of chuckled and said, "I take it you never seen one before." We chatted a bit about it, and he told me he'd seen one a few years ago, but it is very rare. This guy grew up in this community and was probably 40 years old at the time, so he'd been around. The one he saw was running down the road away from him as he was plowing. It was close to the community. And he said it was so fast that he could have never caught up to it if he tried. When he explained what it looked like to me, it was a spitting image of what I saw. Ever since that day, I've been really watching my surroundings as I'm working, and I've never seen another track or any evidence of these beings since. I have done my homework and I've looked into them, but I don't think anyone really knows much. Here's what I know for a fact. They are real. They are not a myth. I know that 100%. I honestly don't care who believes me and who doesn't. I've told a few people about what I saw. Some laugh, some just look at you with a dazed look. I do understand why it's hard to wrap your head around, but people need to at least be open to the idea that they may exist. Don't just dismiss it because you don't believe. You never know. You might be on the receiving end of this one day, just like I was. Thanks for listening, Darren. Keep up the good work. Later. Nick Dawson. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it, man. Northern Ontario ice roads. Wow. Why not? People see them in all other places of the world. Why not up on the ice roads? They're in Alaska, for goodness sakes. So, I'm gonna reach out to you, Nick, for sure. I'd like to see the pictures of the tracks if you've got them. That would be pretty cool. I'll definitely get a hold of you, and maybe we can have a chat. Appreciate the email. Thank you very much. It's just unbelievable, man. It never ceases to amaze me, the people from different walks of life. One more, and I am out of here. Otherwise, I'll fall asleep by the river. Here we go. Hi, Darren, and hello to the Outlaw Country community. Darren, I've been following your channel for a couple months now, and I think I've watched all your videos and listened carefully to all the encounters that have been shared with you. This is a slightly different email, and if you decide not to share it with your followers, I completely understand. I'm a retired wildlife biologist and professional photographer, and I've studied and photographed many, many different species of North American animals over my career. I know that many others in my field of work have heard of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Alaskan hairy man, whatever they're called. And I know many of my colleagues that have discussed this topic thoroughly, and some still do. My career was focused on studying animal behavior and the decline in certain species in certain areas. And along the way, I started dabbling in photography as part of my work. I relied heavily on scientific evidence to make conclusions about a species I was studying or doing research on. But we would also have to rely somewhat on feedback from online surveys, etc., from the public. I will tell you now that I've never personally seen a Bigfoot. And after 35 years studying animals, I still have an incredibly difficult time believing that Bigfoot does in fact exist. However, I have looked into certain scientific research studies that almost, I reiterate, almost undeniably have proven their existence. I have to stress the almost undeniably into that statement because there is the possibility of genetic tampering or altering the facts. I am by no means saying this is the case with any of the Bigfoot studies that I know of, but it is a possibility. I want to explain why I am not 100% convinced that they don't exist. There is valid scientific proof showing the existence of an unknown male species combined with female human mitochondrial DNA. I'm sure many know of the SASQUATCH Genome Project. There are also hundreds of thousands of eyewitness statements from people claiming to have seen a Bigfoot. Some could be made up stories, but it's unlikely that they are all made up. In fact, I'd say it's very unlikely. My time in the wilderness has allowed me to see some things and hear some things that I just simply cannot explain. I've seen some very odd structures built in remote forests that have no sign of humans. I've heard voices and calls in the forest that I don't recognize and can't say what they were. Here's the final piece that has me holding on to the fact that these Bigfoot people may exist. In 2020, 2 years before I retired, I was photographing a group of collared Roosevelt elk in an area that I will not disclose. We had monitored these collared elk for some time and were watching the growth of the herd. It was early November and we were following this herd of 24 elk when myself and my colleague came across some very large footprints in the snow. I'm a size 7. My colleague was a man with a size 11 boot, and these footprints were much larger than his. The difference between his and what we were looking at was this person was barefoot in about 6 to 8 inches of snow. In my entire career, this was the one thing that made me question myself about the existence of Bigfoot. The two of us talked thoroughly. The two of us talked through all the possible scenarios, and there are some for sure. It could have been a human that chooses to walk around barefoot. It is common, but very uncommon in the mountains and in these conditions. It may have been someone trying to hoax us into believing there's a Bigfoot out there. Thirdly, is that it may in fact have been the track of a Bigfoot. I did take pictures of these tracks and shared them with a couple of colleagues I trust dearly. Seeing those tracks that day led me into a new direction with the whole Bigfoot theory. They may actually exist. Once I started looking into them and reading about them and listening to the testimony from witnesses, I started to open my mind more to the possibility that they are out there. As time went on and I retired, I found myself with more time on my hands to look into the Bigfoot. And that's what inevitably led me to your channel, as well as Scott Carpenter's channel, Dave Palad's, and Steve Isdall. I'm watching, reading, and most importantly, I'm listening to others who have had encounters with these mysterious people. I'm not by any means completely convinced, Darren, but I've certainly got one foot in the Bigfoot world now. Sorry. I can't read this. I hope my email makes sense to you and your viewers. I am someone that was aware of the possibility but could not accept it as truth for the longest time. Now, after almost 40 years studying animals and being in their surroundings, I'm leaning towards the reality that these beings do exist and in fact always have been out there. I'd love to have a conversation with you at some point if you ever have time to sit and chat about all that you've seen and heard in your life. You've also spent much of your life in the wilderness, and I'd love to discuss this with you. I hope email makes sense to you and community that I'm proud to be a member of. I find this channel very real, honest, and sincere. You never go off on crazy tangents or other non-related topics. I love your narration of people's encounters. You make me feel like I was there with them. Stay true, and thanks, Darren. I look forward to a chat someday. Sarah Bollinger. Well, God, I hope I got all that. I hope I didn't lose any footage there. I was reading that email and saw the camera light flickering. I'll do something about this whole camera issue. Bear with me here 1 second, folks. All right, I gotta figure this my camera issues out, because every once in a while I look at the camera and I see the light flashing. I don't know what's going on. Anyhow, Sarah, thank you very much. You know what, you guys? As long as your email is pertinent to this topic, I will read it. Okay. Unless you're attacking people that do believe in these beings. What a difference of opinion is there's nothing wrong with the difference of opinion. And I am not by any means trying to convince anybody that Bigfoot are real. I really don't care. All right. People are entitled to their opinion. I got very good friends of mine that just think it's absolutely absurd. I don't think any differently of them. All right. They're entitled to their opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. So as long as it's pertinent to this topic, I will read it. And I will share it. So I will share that, Sarah, of course. I really value your opinion, and I like the fact that you're still not there, and that is cool, right? That's great, because you're gonna come to your own conclusions, and I encourage everybody to do that. I encourage everyone to come to their own conclusions, right? If you think we're all lunatics, fair enough. You don't need to say it. You don't need to say you guys are all crazy and I don't believe this bullshit or nothing like that. You got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. But you're entitled to your own opinion. So, pretty wild. Biologist, photographer, obviously spent a lot of time in the wilderness. Sounds like. So I'd love to have a chat with you, Sarah, for sure. Want to hear what you have to say. I'll tell you what I know. I got nothing to hide. I'll tell everybody my opinions and my thoughts and my beliefs, and what I've encountered, what I've seen in my life. So, and I want to hear from you. Okay, guys. Yeah, man, I spent way too much time here already. I can see the sun starting to go down over the hill here, and I got about 3 hours to go, so I better rock and roll. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're able to get out, do the things you love to do. Hope you're healthy. Pray for everybody's health. And remember, what's more important than anything? Be a good person. All right? Do something nice for someone. Be a good person. You know, you got one ride. You got one ride in life, and make the best of it. Make the most of it. Don't have any regrets. Right? Remember that tattoo I got on my arm? Die with memories. Not with dreams. Die with memories, not with dreams. You got something you want to do and you have the means and the ability to do it, get out and do it. All right, enough preaching from outlaw. I gotta get up while I still can. I haven't heard the airplanes or the helicopter for a while now, so that's a good sign. I'm hoping maybe if there was somebody lost, I really hope they found them. All right, guys. I'm going to hit the trail. You guys take care, and we'll see you next week.